Thank you very much. I am very happy to know that you're glued behind your sets and listening to us on radio across the 10 regions of Ghana. We are back to continue with the second part of series that started running last week. And we're looking at linking pay to productivity in the public service. Today, we're going to throw the searchlight on the role of leadership in performance management. I know you will raise a lot of issues talking about lateness to work, sleeping on a job, misuse of public resources, and a couple of other issues. We have put together some eminent people to join us here so that we can address the issues. Our interaction today will provide valuable insights into the importance of leadership to engagement and the measures leaders can take to improve the performance of their workforce. I am grateful to have with me on set Mr. Austin Game, who is the Chief Executive Officer, Game & Game. He is also a labor consultant and an ADR consultant. Mrs. Anita Wiafi Asino is the Managing Director, OML Africa. And they have joined me in the studio for us to have this valuable interaction. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome. Good to see all of you again. Mr. Austin Game, Happy New Year.
Same to you.
And Happy New Year to you, Anita.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Now, we started talking about performance management last week and how to link pay to productivity. And I've had a couple of calls, you know, the need for us to constantly or consistently educate our listeners, or for that matter, public sector workers, for us to increase productivity. And so I am happy we are back again to continue with this session. Broadly speaking, if we talk about leadership in the public service, what does it entail? Let me start with you, Mr. Austin Game.
Thank you. Well, this is a very interesting subject matter, which will not require for us to be using maybe a cut and paste or dictionary approach. We have to take on board what is it that is real on the ground today as far as leadership in these circumstances is concerned. So broadly speaking, leadership is anyone who wants to make a difference in his time. And he would stand up for it, step up and ensure the right thing is done. And when it comes to scaling, he will be very tough. And this fellow, without any excuse whatsoever, efficiently and effectively manage the human, the financial, the material resources, and account for every action of his or hers, and in return ensure that he demands accountability from all those who work, you know, under him as well. That is the angle from which I want to come from.
Okay. Anita, let me also seek your input as far as this is concerned.
I think to add to what Austin just said on leadership, I think we need to separate people from management. And as Austin said, a leader, when we're talking about leadership, we mean somebody who enlists the aid and support of other people to achieve a common goal. So this person, we're expecting, would set the vision, the direction. They will also provide information and knowledge, and also the methods in which indicates how the vision is going to be realized. But as Austin says, one of the fundamental aspects of a leader is in times of crisis, being able to manage and coordinate a balance between all the conflict that comes from all stakeholders in a crisis, and then also being able to stand up and think and act in a way in which the situation is resolved as quickly as possible. But when we look at management, although leadership and management they are two distinct things, they are not separate. Okay. But when we're talking about managers or management, we mean people who are organizing and coordinating the activities, okay, to realize the vision or the direction for which the leader or the leadership has set. So we expect that in terms of management, they will create an environment that is conducive for the worker or workers or employees to be able to deliver their work effectively and efficiently. And that means giving them the materials to do the work, their remuneration, the rules and regulations of the environment. That's all part of what you're expecting those in the management to do. And when we talk about effectiveness, we mean that doing the work appropriately. So if it's round pegs, you put it in round holes. If it's square pegs, you put it in square holes. And when we talk about efficiency, we mean doing the work correctly. So by that we mean, you know, you are doing what is required of you, and you're doing it as it should be done. So when we are talking about leadership, we're expecting that our leaders will be the visionary, the setting of the direction, but they will have elements of management to also make it happen, or those that they put below them to make happen will exhibit some
The purpose for which we're doing this is to step up productivity levels, and you would all agree with me, looking at our situation within the public sector. The President has had the opportunity during his State of the Nation address, during the Independence anniversary, to clearly ask for public sector workers to raise, or for that matter, rise up to the occasion and work very hard. Because if we don't increase productivity, how do we achieve our set goals as a nation at a time when wage bill of government is hitting about 70% of total revenue? And so we will have to look for the magic wand to see how best we can achieve this. I know there are types of leaders. You can talk about the charismatic leaders, the revolutionary leaders, the radical leaders. Do we specifically have to point out the kind of leadership we need in management to achieve this? Mr. Austin Garment.
Well, today the honest admission is that the world is being driven by knowledge, and it's being driven by rapidly changing technologies. And it's being driven by skills. If you don't possess these attributes, these key ingredients, you can call yourself a leader, but you will soon be found out that when they put you on the scale, you can't weigh. So it's a question of making a difference in your time. At the moment, if you want to broaden the scope properly, we have a president who is virtually the leader of all of us. And like you rightly said, he went to Parliament and read through our representatives the state of the nations, you know, as it were. And authorized his finance minister to come and put a budget down to back it. So now the stage is set for action. We must ensure that the people who are put in charge of the various MDAs, the ministries, departments, and agencies, and all units, that they have from the ministers down to the directors and to the sectional heads, they all have certain little bit of assignment to perform. Now, I'm sure they've delegated responsibilities to these people with specific authority to perform certain duties. And we all listened to the president when he was swearing in the ministers. He said, I am going to account for my stewardship. I am also demanding from you an accountability for the roles you have been assigned to play. I am beginning to think that the ministers will sit with their chief directors and directors and also lay the objectives that will be driven by various strategies that they have put together to enable them to achieve the set goals that they intend to achieve. And it's without any excuse whatsoever from any quarter, because people are contributing into one insurance pool, and out of it, they are paying everybody in this country. So there will be nothing like excuses to be given that I have authorized someone to do this, they didn't do it, and you did what about it? So the past is past, and I don't want to think about the past. Somebody can talk about 2008. I am not interested in 2008 now. We are in 2013. 2013, specific directives have been given by the president. Budgets have been put together. It will surely be approved. We all know that. When it's done, now we expect the various ministers and the available human resource that is put at their disposal to perform. And it's without a shadow of excuse. And they will have to also go and account for their stewardship at the appropriate time. So like rightly Anita also said, this is not a time to be dancing around and giving us excuses. So we are confronted with a situation, like you also said, that we are using about 70 pesos from cities, from each city, to pay public service people now. We have to demand from the people who are managing this human resource how they are performing, their set, the agenda that have been prepared for them, the plans that they have for them. How are they performing? How do we measure? Because you can never manage anything that you cannot measure. So how do they measure it? Perhaps when you go into the mainstream of the conversation, we will have to point out these things and be sure that it is not going to be business as usual.
Okay. Anita, let me take this one from you, then I can go for some tape to roll. Louisa was in town. Louisa of Fairwages and Salaries Committee was in town. So I will take this one from you, and then we will go over to hear what. Look, in a world of work in which new challenges are confronting leaders at a very quickening pace, organizations cannot afford to overlook leader development. And like Mr. Austin Garner said, technology is driving the workforce. And so some emphasis should be placed at the doorstep of leadership for us to address this once and for all. Then that can trickle down to...
Yeah.
What should we specifically do?
I think with this situation, with every situation, you first have to find out where you are. As Austin was saying, I mean, and even the president in his State of the Nation address about wanting more, and of course wanting more is not just about the employees, it's also about the management. But you mentioned earlier on that we have different types of leadership styles. In fact, there's 10 main ones. But if you look at our public sector, we are working, for me anyway, in assessment within 3. The laissez-faire, the bureaucratic, and the autocratic leadership style, which in effect, if you know the disadvantages of that style, is impacting on perhaps some of the things we are experiencing here. When actually what we need is the transformational and transactional leadership styles. So the transformational person is the one who expects a lot from his or her work subordinate, but also of themselves. So they are responsible and they are accountable. And the transactional one makes sure that, like Austin was saying, objectives and targets and goals are actually being achieved and being measured. Your performance is being measured against these things. Currently, we are not quite there. So I think in this discussion, we kind of need to look at the issue. For me, the issue is that we may even have leaders in place. But for me, I think it's a leadership competency issue. Are you with me? So we may even have the right leaders in place, but we've put them, they are round and we've put them in square pegs. We have to accept that's possible in the world of human resource management. So we first need to assess to see what do we have, because we can't sit here and categorically say that everybody in the public sector is a poor leader and is not performing. That is not true, and that would be unfair. There are people who are doing their job, who are doing very well, and who are performing. What we are talking about is perhaps we realize that maybe there's a larger proportion that may not be so. So if it's not so, we need to understand what do we have and how do we address it. But currently, the transformational and transactional leadership competencies we need, probably we're not having. We are working with the laissez-faire, which is kind of leave well alone, letting them get on with it, the bureaucratic, very regimented ways. And then, of course, the autocratic, very directive style of leadership. So we also need to look at what is happening there and then move on. But I think one of the main issues is leadership competencies. Have we made sure that our leaders have these competencies? And if they don't, what are we going to do about it? Because sometimes, too, when we're talking about chief directors and people of very high positions, telling them we need to develop is an abomination. They are at a high level. What do you mean I have to go for training? Sometimes it's not easy to tell people at the top of their game or regarded as the top of their game to now develop competencies which at the top of the game they're supposed to have. So I think we need to take that perspective in, because it's when we know and develop these competencies we begin to address the issue we have in terms of effective management.
But I think one way or the other is to put in place some self-auditing mechanisms that will challenge authority of such leaders as to whether they are meeting up with their goals or not. I will come back to that. Let me go to Louisa. Louisa was in town to find out people's views about the role of leadership as far as performance management is concerned. Louisa, take it up.
Thank you, Cecil. It has been said, and it is true, that productivity in the public service is low. This is due to the fact that public servants have poor attitude towards work. Some of the challenges that the public service face include lateness to work, the misuse of public resource for private jobs, among others. So today we are here on the streets of Accra to view people's discretion on performance and attitude by means of productivity in the public service. So we are here with Mr. Intiful to give us his view on some causes of low productivity in the public service. Hello, Mr. Intiful.
Yes, yeah. Yes, I think basically it has to do with lack of motivation. Yes, I think that is a major issue. There might be other factors, which I would say maybe lack of supervision. That could also be, but that should be on the low side. Motivation, if you are well motivated, at dawn you come to work, in the night you work. So I think that is a basic cause.
I think some have genuine reasons. That is lack of logistics. They are lacking it, so they don't have what to work with. And then let's say, secondly, there are also those who don't have a job description. So they come and sit down. When you don't tell them to do anything, they just sit and wait and, waste the whole day doing nothing, because they don't have the job description. And others too, I believe, because my boss is not around, I wouldn't also do anything. Some wouldn't even come at all. They just come and peep to see if their bosses are around. If they don't see any sign of him, they go away because they don't have a job description. But I believe if they are given their own job description individually, when you come, this is the task ahead of me. I have to complete it before I go home. Now, if you don't do it, you are not getting paid. I mean, somebody will report you, or somebody also needs it to do the next thing. So if you don't do it, you are holding somebody in place. Okay, you understand what I mean? So without the job description, they will always sit down and waste the day. At the end of the month, they'll collect their salary and there will be low productivity.
So, madam, what do you mean by job description?
It's just a description to individuals, okay, breaking down the jobs, giving one assignment and two to the other. Everybody knows this is what I have to do. So when I come, I'll do exactly that. But if I don't have anything to do, if I've not been assigned to any work, I'll just come and sit down and wait if somebody has something for me to do, or if I'm called to do something, I'll just go and do it. And even that, I wouldn't do it well because I think it's not my duty, it's not my line of, But if I've been given a specific task to do, that this is what you have to do, this is the reason why you are here, I'll do it. And people will also be there looking whether you are doing it or not. Because if you don't do it, you are blocking somebody's too. So that is what I think.
What do you think are some of the causes of low productivity in the public service?
Okay, I think one of the causes is about this no payment of allowances. Let's say motivation. When you tend to pay your workers their allowances and other stuff, I think they would give out their best. And I think two would be decentralization. If we are able to decentralize our system, like most of the duties are being performed at the lower level, I think work will be just perfect for us. And again, I think bureaucratic system of leadership too. I think some of the duties should be performed at the lower level management so that work will be done effectively and on time.
I'm from GS and I teach at Mahiam Secondary Technical. I have been recruited 2011. And up to now, I have not even received my salary. That's the first one, that's motivation. And then the second one is resources. Yeah. But for the resources, I may say that the government is doing something about it. Yeah. So I have only two items over there. The motivation, especially the payment of salary. Yes.
When you talk about low productivity, two things come to mind. First, it's about bureaucratic tendencies that tend to affect a lot of decision making, thereby dragging the wheel for a long time. The second aspect I would like to talk about is about a lot of these processes within the public sector need to be re-engineered as a result of these bureaucratic tendencies that I've already mentioned. If we're able to reform, then I believe when the workforce, or let me say people who are placed within the correct placements at their workplaces, will be able to deliver the best.
That's all we have for you today. Back to you, Cecil.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Louisa. We are back. So listeners, if you're still with us, this is our usual program that comes your way every Saturday on GTV and on all regional networks across the country on radio. So it's a simulcast program and is single spine the issues. We are continuing with what we started last week, linking pay to productivity. Today, we are throwing the searchlight on the role of leadership and performance management. My guest with me in the studio, Mr. Austin Game, is the Chief Executive Officer, Game & Game. He's also a labor consultant and an ADR consultant. Mrs. Anita Yafi Sino is Managing Director, OML Africa, and they are here with me in the studio. And we are having great interaction that will provide valuable insights into the importance of leadership to engagement and measures management, or for that matter leaders, can take to improve performance of their workforce. A couple of issues I pointed out when we went out with Louisa. It's got to do with motivation, lack of logistics. Someone also spoke about the absence of job description, and bureaucratic leadership was mentioned, radical re-engineering someone was suggesting. Let me put all these together and find out whether managers, or for that matter leaders, are faced with an increasingly complex challenge of understanding how to motivate their workforce to drive employee job satisfaction. Let me throw this one to you, Mr. Austin Game, and then I'll...
Thank you. You see, the reality is what they have said. Now, but at this stage, what we want to look at is this. Can we make a difference at this time and ensure that we have a sustainable value for money? Now, for this reason, the task that is confronting today's leadership is to create an alignment of strengths so that weaknesses become irrelevant, completely irrelevant. But there are too many things that we do. Fortunately, some of us have worked in the public and service before, and therefore we do know what the calamities are hanging there about. So the reality today is to ensure that we have a complete alignment. Those of us who drive know that if your car is not properly aligned, you go sideways and so on and so on. So we must have an alignment. Now, what are we talking about here? The capacity, the core competencies. She talked about competencies, but I just want to add a little value and say that there are certain core competencies that are required of every leader in this kind of public service system we are talking about now. And like we all said from the outset, fortunately for us, we already have a guide. We have the labor law that we all have, and we all have some knowledge about in this country. And therefore, no leader in the public service, the managements that are given specific responsibilities to perform, will have no more excuse to give. What, however, we need is to ensure that we provide certain reminders, kind of training, in a format that is different from traditional listening to speeches. It's not about speech again. It's not about lecturing. It's about workshop. Not even a seminar per se. It's about workshop. that people will now have access to certain management tools that they will try their hands on.
Yeah.
And it's not fair for anybody to think that he knows it already. If you think like that, then you have a problem. We all don't know everything. We learn day by day. And like we said, there is rapidly changing technologies in this world today. And therefore, we must be willing and ready to open up and learn new things. And therefore, the reality here is that we are expecting leadership and management that are in place to accept the challenge that we have to do things differently. How do we do it? How we do it is to ensure that we align the question of how people are given the kind of appointment letters they were referring to. The reality is that if you take the single spine arrangement, we have an omnibus job description, let's say level 1 to level 22, 25, thereabout. Yeah. If you take level 16, there is a job description there for them. But now, what we need to do is for the leadership, is for the management, who has these people at his disposal, to now get his sub-teams to assign each and every one his KPIs, and then the targets that they are supposed to achieve. And the labor law is very clear. In section 8, subsection B, the law says that it is for management as a right to formulate policies.
Yes.
Not only that, but to set targets, achievable targets. And you don't just impose these things, like Anita said earlier. We don't have to be imposing things on people these days. You have a conversation with the worker who works in that department, because we already have the objective for the business. So now we trickle it down. So you and I will have a conversation. This is what you are supposed to be doing. He talk about it. We all document these things. If it requires some kind of adjustment of his mindset and coaching and this kind of things will be done. And so the leadership itself must be prepared, management itself must be prepared to learn some of these tools, how to use it. And then they coach, guide, assist these people. Where it will require some 3 days classroom kind of workshop, you send them. Now they have no more excuse. You are confronted with the job. And we don't wait till the end of the year to be saying you are doing appraisal here and there. That is yesterday manner. Today, in this world, what we do is to ensure that every week we all go to work. So from Monday to Friday, when I have given you a target, I must know where we are. I must know where we are. So we know whether you are, or you put a dipstick in your car tank and there is a shortfall of engine oil or petrol or something. You know it.
Yeah.
And so you have to top it up. So you assist the person through coaching and guidance.
I guess the difficulty is got to do with formulating the policies and strategies that will resonate the core values of the employee.
Maybe before Anita comes in, the Public Services Commission has been engaged in a few days now, trying to put together performance management systems in place. Fortunately, Anita and I were part of the people looking at those things. The truth is that we have, fortunately, a very strong leadership in the Public Services Commission. Mrs. Bridget Kacheku is very effective. What they need to do is to give her the resources, and she'll be able to sit, get these things properly done, and get the leadership of the various sectors of the public and civil service together in a workshop. This time not lecturing, in a workshop. So they have the tools.
But this is a situation where Fair Wages and Salaries Commission has also been given some kind of mandate, and so how do we also ensure that we give them the support, Fair Wages and Salaries Commission,
the issue is
for them to
I mean,
live up to expectation and make sure that we link performance to...
I mean, the Fair Wages have a clear mandate as to their role in this performance management system that we're talking about, in which they of course will be implementing. But before them, there is a process, which is what Austin was just talking about. So if we just take the discussion of what Austin just explained, just for the benefit of your viewers, because we're using a lot of keywords and a lot of terminologies they may not necessarily be
Like the
hearing
KPIs
and
instance, yes.
So basically, just to give an example, what we are saying is this. Now the president says we have a 60.9 wage bill.
Wage bill, yes.
So let's say now he says, right, by the end of this fiscal year, I want you to reduce it by 20% across board for all the agencies. So this is a task that goes to the minister of whatever agency. You are accountable for making sure by the end of this year, that 20% mark, we all are able to achieve it. So each relative leader takes it to their relative area, okay? Now, how are we going to do this? This is what Austin is talking about. So in the first instance, the management, top management, okay, will sit, they'll plan how they're going to do it. They'll decide on what we call the key results area. So they'll decide these are the results that we want to achieve, and then they'll also decide on the key performance indicators. Now the indicators are the measures. So for example, as we are talking about pay for performance, every employee is going to know how are you going to measure my performance so that at the end of it, I get whatever increase or reward that is at the end of it. So at the top level, they need to do this. Once they've done that, they also need to define the resources that are going to be required to achieve this target the president has set them for, we are playing with now. So once the top level has done, who we are talking as the senior management, they cascade it down to the management level. They too have to do it for their departments first, and then with the individual. Now, when we get to the individual is what Austin was saying about the conducive work environment. It means they must have a job description because the key results areas links into the job description. So if I don't have a job description, what are you linking the key, exactly? And the key indicators are then going to be used to measure whatever. So if we're saying we're reducing, maybe a manager's task is to reduce we're going to freeze recruitment. We're going to reduce recruitment costs by whatever percentage. That may be the target. The objective is we're going to reduce the cost. So what we are saying is everybody should know what is it that we're trying to do, okay? How would we know when we've done it? And how are we going to measure it? That is what we're saying. And once management down to the last employee understands this, it then becomes easier to then be able to measure the outputs in terms of whether they've been able to do it throughout the year. And that's what Austin is saying. Generally in practice, in our system, we do appraisals, as we call them, every year. Some people have mid-year reviews. Some companies, mainly in the private sector, do quarterly reviews throughout the year, so that it's not at the end of the year I'm going to now find out you couldn't do it, Cecil, because something. So what he's saying is that we need to kind of be looking to implement some of these practical ways of managing people into the sector where we are reviewing, the managers are supposed to be coaching and mentoring, supporting and feeding back to their subordinates throughout the year. And the annual is going to be the formal assessment of you. So it shouldn't be, we will just wait till then to do it. We should be doing it ongoing. And I think if we became more proactive in that, we'll immediately start to reduce some of the issues we are being faced with right now.
Okay, all right. Let's go for a break. When we get back, what we're going to do is to activate the platform so that we can engage our viewers and our listeners who are interested in what we're talking about. And you have to go straight to the point. We're doing this so that we can have this interaction, a very smooth one. If you have had some problems with some institutions and you think you want to mention them, feel free, go ahead. We have to name and shame. And we can only do this together if it's going to work for all of us so that we can achieve our set goals as a nation. So let's go for this break. When we get back, I will announce the phone lines, and then you can join us with all your concerns and suggestions or questions. We will be back.
The rise of the national wage bill has been met with an understandably alarming rise in the public outcry against...
Thank you very much. We are back. You're still live with us on GTV. This is a co-production, GBC and Fairwages and Salaries Commission, and we are broadcasting live across the 10 regions of Ghana on radio and live on GTV, your station of the nation. In fact, the pulse of the nation. Thank you so much. And so we are back. I will take this opportunity to welcome my guest back onto this platform and also ask a very important question. All that we have talked about, there's the need for us to have some connectivity. And the connectivity has got to do with linking pay to productivity. And so we will delve deep into this. But I will announce the phone line available for us now, 0302-770111. It will roll on your screen, and then you, in the comfort of your homes, you can give us a call, and then you can join us with all your questions, all your suggestions, and it will be answered. 0302-770179. And so you can join us now if you have some questions to ask. Anita, let me come over to you. There's a need for us to increase the level of productivity, and there's the need for us to link pay and productivity as far as performance management is concerned. Leaders have a role to play. Managers have a role to play. And I mentioned earlier on formulating policies, strategies that will resonate with the core values of employees. How do we put all these together?
Well, I think when we talk about the pay for productivity or what we also call pay for performance model, it's a challenging one for us in terms of our current
I've just been informed that there's someone on the line. Let's go to the phone. Just hold on. Hello?
Hello, good evening.
Yeah, good evening. Your name, speak up a bit for us so we can hear you. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
No, my name is Moses.
Moses?
Yeah, I'm calling from Ashaman.
Moses from Ashaman. Let's hear you, Moses.
Yes. My problem is, now we work in a hospital now, and we are about 7, in the lab. 7. And each of us, we don't know this work we have to do in the hospital. We all just come there and we expect, like, we have 7 in the lab, and we are not given actual work to do in the lab. So some of us just come there and sit there for some 4 hours. When it's time, then we leave. By the end of the month, we get our salary paid. So that is our problem. When we go to the lab, we don't know what to do.
Okay.
We only come there and expect our friends to do the work for us and go back.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Moses. I'm happy you have made this available to us. And it cuts across, the public sector.
In fact, Moses' call is a very good example to pick on.
Exactly.
In the sense that, of course, when we talk about pay for productivity, if it's implemented the way it should, he will no longer be enjoying the freedom he currently is. And that is one of the issues with this particular model. What we are basically saying is that our workforce are motivated by money.
Yeah.
So therefore, we're going to use that, okay, as a factor to motivate them. And in doing so, we are going to do so due to their performance. Now, if we say that, then it means that as the leadership and the management have to have what Austin was talking about earlier on, that environment for which this can be done. So it means we have to have our job descriptions. It means the leadership has to have the vision, the objectives, the targets, the KPIs, and all these KRAs, things we're talking about, in place. Because what it would mean is, at the end of the year, Cecil, if I was assessing you, I will pick whatever objectives and targets we set, and then I will be basically rating you to see whether you've achieved it. Based on your rating score, the overall score, that will determine, because we will link that to a level of whatever we agree the pay plan will be to reward you. Okay? Now, when that comes in, it means everybody all of a sudden, you have their attention. They obviously want to receive their increment, so they're going to become more critical on what? On management doing what he has to do. Are you with me? So in terms of linking pay to productivity, the issue really is around, our biggest problem is implementation. Okay, if we can implement it and be clear on the objective setting, the KRAs, be clear on the measures, on when we are reviewing objective measures, may I say, not subjective. It shouldn't be, I like Cecil, so I'm just going to give Cecil all 555 when actually Cecil is 111.
Let me go to the phone again. We have someone on the line. Hello?
Hello?
Yes. Tell us where you're calling from, your name and where you're calling from.
Kwashiman. My name is Paul Kumire.
Paul.
Yeah.
Okay, from Kwashiman. Paul, let's hear you.
Yeah, Paul Kumire. Yeah, hello. Concerning the work and the pay production, consider security services. You can connect the pay to the production because whenever something happens in the presence of a policeman, you have to affect the arrest. And after that place, another thing can happen to affect the arrest. So how can you contribute the pay, the production?
Okay. Okay. There's a linkage, and so my guest will address that. Mr. Game.
The reality is that everybody, whether policeman, soldier, farmer, office worker, ICT man, broadcasting man like yourself, you have a role to play. You must be told what it is. For people not to think that we are just imagining something, I want to read from the Labour Act. The law says in section 98, subsection G, it says, without any prejudice to the other provisions of this act and subject to any agreement between the parties to a collective agreement, it may include the provisions of the following. The G, the principles for matching remuneration with productivity. That is the law for Ghana. And then when you come to section 8, the management is enjoined under B to formulate policies, execute plans and programs, and to set targets. And then it goes on to say in section 11, the duties of every worker. The law says you must work conscientiously in your lawfully chosen occupation. You are to report for work regularly and punctually. You are to enhance productivity. And your business is to ensure that you obey lawful instructions regarding the organization and execution of his or her work. This is the law that we are as a guide for all of us, whether in public or private. In effect, Cecil, the reality here is that when you possess as a management person, as a leader of your side, the core competencies we are talking about here, you cannot allow your people to come to a laboratory. And we are supposed to work for 8 hours.
8 hours,
Granting that we have maybe 1 or 2 things done. So at least between 7 to 7.5 hours, you should, because we pay for people's time. But we are now confronted with a situation where indeed people go to work, they do virtually nothing. And we pay a cross-board pay kind of regime in Ghana. This is the most, sorry, and I respect everybody's views, but the point is this. We shouldn't continue to be making people lazy. Lazy person, average person,
mediocre person,
good person, excellent person are all being given 15% across board pay. Where is the motivation? We must stop that thing immediately in this country. We must stop it immediately. It's a shame that we are doing this thing to ourselves. We are harming ourselves. And the trade unions are not just anybody in this country. They are well known. Everybody knows that if you take the key people in the trade union today, some of them are doctorate holders. Some of them are economists. They know what to do. So it's not like they don't know. They know. It's management, business, to bring, and the law is clear. The president, his cabinet ministers, his directors, everybody, if they are not aware, I'm informing everybody that the law is very clear as to what everybody is enjoined to do. Fairwages and Salaries Commission has no excuse. They must sit up and make sure that they are at the negotiation table with their program, they must send it as a draft to the unions. Don't impose anything on anybody.
I am very much aware that at the moment, Fairwages and Salaries Commission, in conjunction with MDPI, are planning some national productivity forum to be preceded by a roundtable session of all stakeholders to link pay to productivity. Let me go to the phone. I'll come back to you, Anita. Hello?
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 Yes. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Now, please, I'm Frederick, and I'm calling from Itchman, Multi-Player Branch.
Your name is?
Please, I'm Frederick.
Frederick?
Yes, please.
And calling from Tichiman?
Yes, please.
Okay, Frederick, let's see.
Okay, please, my issue which does concern me a lot is about the Fairwages and Service Commission. It seems to when we are talking about the low productive increment in the public sector, I was just referring to the inefficiency of the lack of supervision. You know, sometimes, let's just make it, a teacher who normally goes to work every day, you go, sit under employee, and then expect to just receive a pay at the end of the month, which couldn't just call. Because when there is a very strong and effective supervision about this sector, I was just thinking about this negative productivity we are just giving to our nation. So we are trying to build a very strong and a good nation. Let's make sure the supervision aspect is very clear, and then there are very...
Oh, we've lost him. I guess he was making some
very
important
valid
points.
point. I attended middle school.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that the supervision in the schools those days, when they are even coming, you know that there is something happening.
Yeah.
But we are simply just doing things in this 21st century, advancing technology like this, and we are pretending as if Ghana, we are a sovereign country.
Yeah.
But we are not sovereign, we are not an island.
Yeah.
We are operating within community of nations.
Yeah.
So we should not pretend and be under any illusion that we can do what we are doing here and blame it on government and blame it on somebody. Everybody must sit up.
The point is that, Anita, there are engagement processes.
Yeah, there are.
Engagement drivers for leaders,
Yeah.
engagement drivers for management, engagement drivers for employees, and talk about commitment, even the culture within the organization, the need to be customer focused. We know all these things and we talk about them. How come we don't implement them?
As a practitioner,
Yeah.
I mean, listening to all of this, you know, it's all running through your head, and you're trying to make sense of it. Just to touch on the productivity before I touch on the engagement, we keep talking about productivity. Do we actually know what it is we want to measure? How we're going to measure?
Yeah.
You know, how do we know? Have we defined what exactly do we mean by productivity? What do we want them to do? And if we're talking about productivity and we're linking to pay, we also need to talk about the measures. After all the performance have been collected, is the Fairwages going to do a productivity analysis, okay, to see whether what we have invested is actually what we have gotten out. So this issue on pay for productivity shouldn't just be a matter of employees do their performance, we reward them and it stops there. Then if we're saying we're going with this model, there has to be an additional external analysis on productivity. Are we getting what we are paying for, which is what the public are very interested in finding out. And we will know, of course, because there will be some changes in some of these issues that your callers are bringing in. Now, moving on to the issue of engagement, we have a problem with engagement. And to be honest, that's not just in the public sector, even in the private sector. We are not engaging our workforce. You know, when we talk about engagement, we categorize workers into 4 categories.
Yeah.
There's what we call the disconnected or the dead wood. Basically, they are not engaged with their job and they are not engaged with the organization. They are what we call historic baggage. We are paying for them, they are liabilities, and really what we need to do is retire and exit them.
Yeah.
No, we have to be frank. This is an issue across sectors. It's not particularly to the public sector. Then we come to what we call the free agents. The free agents are engaged with their jobs, but not the organization. So if your competitor, if another organization comes to poach them, they will go. But they like their job. So they are remaining there waiting for the next opportunity. And even they may even be the ones who are maybe even doing external things, even though they are employed, they're doing external things because they are really not engaged with the organization. They are just there for their job and their pay, and that is it. That is the free agent. Then we move on to the bench warmers. Okay? Now they are engaged with their job and also they like the organization, but actually they are square pegs in round circles. They usually need some kind of career development, retraining. They've just become disengaged because they are not probably suited to their job. Probably even some of these leadership problems we have. They've been put in positions they can't do the job, they're not competent to, or they've lost faith in it. Then there are the stars, which is what we want, which is what everybody calling all these discussions about. They are engaged, they are engaged with their job, the organization, they are performing.
They're productive.
In fact, when 5 o'clock comes, they are not running, they are still working. They are bringing ideas to improve. When the customer comes in, they will go out of their way to make sure if you're in a registered general, your registration goes ahead.
So how do we recognize all these people?
We have to teach the leadership.
We link it with the pay.
Exactly.
Okay. Let me go for the last call, and then we will round up because we have a few minutes to wrap up the segment. Hello. Hello. Okay, it looks like we have lost this caller, but I'm very happy. I would wish that this is going to continue again. But let me take your final words. Somebody will say that we should begin to consider sanctions as modes of addressing some of the sanctions for employers, sanctions for employees, and so
it fits everybody. The labor law is for everybody.
Yeah.
The point is that if you are incompetent, the law says you can be terminated.
Exactly.
And it is described as fair termination. And so both in section 15 and 62, the law is very clear. It is the manner in which the process you go through in dealing with it. That is what Pat Anita talked about.
Yeah.
If you do the appraisals properly, not subjective kind of things. And that's the one the unions will frown on. So we must make sure that it's done and done well. We must do as much as possible with time. We must take away the human element, introduce technology. It can be done. And therefore, if Fair Wages and Salaries Commission want to ensure that productivity, we are not just going to do things as usual, then we must make sure that we have a blend of professionals and academic people that will put these things together so that we don't just have some paper thing that will be announced at a fanfare assembly. I guarantee you, if it doesn't work, never will it work again. So we must make sure that we don't waste money. We must make sure the right thing is done. We've existed in this country for some time now, and we all have experiences, diverse experiences. So what I would like to suggest is that the traditional notch type of salary structure must be giving way for the proper broadband salary structure, so that people pay is personal to everybody, and we make sure we link it. We know the beginning, we know the end, in between. When you perform well, you are given higher wages.
Anita, just a few words for us to wrap up.
I want to say that this discussion we're having is not new. I mean, Ghana has had a performance management approach or tried to implement one since the 1990s. And the failure has been implementation. Okay, and so this time what we need to do is we need to realize this issue is not, this issue shouldn't become a political issue. This is an issue, is a country issue. We need to solve it, regardless which government it is. So it means the fair wages, it means the human resources, it means the management, it means the government. And it means us as a people, you ask the question, like at the beginning about the leadership.
No, but I
just wanted to say that we too have to hold our leaders accountable.
Okay. Thank you very much. They should show the way as leaders, and as leaders, we should also assure ourselves that there's going to be that continual growth and development of our organization. I will take this opportunity to thank all of you. Mr. Austin Game, Chief Executive Officer, Game & Game. He's also a labor consultant and an ADR consultant. Mrs. Anita Riafi Asino is the Managing Director, OML Africa. Thank you so much. Make a date with us again, same time next week, Saturday, on this same platform. Single Spine the Issues. We are out. Keep watching GTV and keep listening to us on radio.
Thank you, Cecil. Thank you, Cecil.